2 hours had passed. The artifact's data was still downloading into the ship's computers, layer after layer of information encoded in biological memory that had waited 12 million years to be read. Sori worked with Hana and Yujin, sorting through streams of data. Most of it was corrupted or incomplete, but there were fragments, pieces of a story that slowly came together. "Captain," Sori called over the comm, "we found something. It's a message." "A recording." Minho left the bridge and rushed to the lab. The artifact sat on the table, glowing with soft golden light. On the screen above it, symbols were translating into human language. The encryption was designed specifically for Vorketh biology, Hana explained. It needed our DNA to unlock. Whoever made this wanted to make sure only their descendants could read it. "Play the message," Minho said. The screen flickered, and a hologram appeared. It was a Vorketh, or what the Vorketh had been. The figure was unmistakably humanoid, but taller and stronger than modern humans. It wore simple clothing and stood in what looked like a vast chamber. When it spoke, the translation came through clearly. The voice was tired, sad, and infinitely weary. "My name is Kal. I am the last administrator of the Vorketh people. If you are seeing this, then our plan worked. You are our children, born from our choice to change." The hologram paused, and Kal seemed to gather strength. "We were conquerors. For 5,000 years, we spread across the galaxy. We believed we were bringing order to chaos. We thought we were making the universe better, but we were wrong." Images appeared behind Kal showing the Vorketh expansion. But unlike the Council's images of war and destruction, these showed something different. The Vorketh had genuinely believed they were helping. They had thought their way was the only way. "We realized too late what we had become," Kal continued. "We had erased 47 civilizations, not out of cruelty, but out of absolute certainty that we were right. That certainty made us monsters. We looked at the galaxy and saw only problems to fix, resources to use, chaos to organize. We couldn't see the beauty and difference. We couldn't understand that our order was another species' extinction." Minho watched, transfixed. The Council fleet was approaching, but this moment mattered more than anything. Kal's image showed pain. We debated for generations. Some wanted to continue, believing we could become better conquerors. Others wanted to simply end ourselves to remove the threat we posed. But a third group proposed something different, something radical. The hologram showed the Vorketh homeworld, Kaveth, what humans now called Earth. We decided to transform, not just our civilization but ourselves, our very biology. We gathered our greatest minds, our best genetic engineers, and we created a plan. Images showed vast laboratories, Vorketh working together on something enormous. We would return to our homeworld. We would use genetic regression to strip away our advanced adaptations, make ourselves primitive again. Then we would seal away all our technology, all our knowledge. We would let time and evolution reshape us over millions of years. Kal looked directly at the camera, as if seeing through time to whoever would watch this message. "We gambled everything on the hope that time would change us. That starting over, living through thousands of generations without our technology would teach us humility. That struggling to survive would teach us compassion. That being small and vulnerable would teach us to value life." The hologram showed the final days of the Vorketh civilization. They were destroying their ships, shutting down their colonies, gathering everyone back to their homeworld. Every Vorketh chose to return. We left no one behind. We accepted that we were ending our civilization so that something better could begin. Tears streamed down Sori's face as she watched. Hana held Yujin's hand tightly. Even Dohyun, watching from the bridge, was silent. "The genetic regression will take 1,000 generations," Kal said. "You will lose your strength, your resistance, your intelligence for a time. You will become primitive. You will forget everything we were. But slowly, over millions of years, you will evolve again. You will rediscover fire, tools, language, civilization. And this time, you will do it without our arrogance." The images showed Vorketh entering stasis chambers, accepting the regression treatment. Children being born smaller and weaker than their parents. A civilization willingly walking backward into primitiveness. "We place these markers across Kaveth," Kal continued. "Encoded with our DNA. Programmed to activate only when our descendants are ready. When you find this message, it means you have reached the stars again. It means you survived. It means you changed." Kal's expression grew intense. "If you are watching this, then judge us. Judge the Vorketh for what we were, but judge yourselves for what you have become. Are you still conquerors? Are you still certain that your way is the only way? Or have 12 million years taught you what we never learned until it was too late? The hologram showed the Vorketh in their final days, transformed into something that looked almost like early humans. We chose transformation over destruction. We chose hope over certainty. We chose to become small so that one day our children might become great. Not in power, but in wisdom. Kale's image began to fade. To our descendants, whoever you are, whatever you have become, know this. You are not monsters. You are the children of monsters who chose to change. The galaxy will fear you. They will see only what we were. But you must show them what you are. Not through conquest or domination, but through choice. Every day you must choose to be better than we were. The hologram disappeared. The artifact's light dimmed. In the lab, no one spoke for a long moment. Minho's communicator beeped. Velthar's voice came through. Human Captain, your time is up. The fleet has arrived. Have you found your evidence? Minho looked at his crew. They nodded. Yes, Ambassador, we have. And you need to see it. 20 minutes later, the message was being broadcast throughout the council station. Every delegate watched Kal's confession. The chamber was silent except for the ancient Vorketh's words. When it ended, the silence continued. Then slowly, the Eleth delegate floated forward. They chose to transform. They recognized their own darkness and spent 12 million years trying to escape it. The Kresh delegate was less convinced. They were still the Vorketh. This message doesn't erase what they did. No, Velthar said quietly, but it explains what the humans are. They are not the Vorketh returning. They are the Vorketh's greatest act of redemption, a species that looked at itself and said, we must become different even if it takes millions of years. The voting began again. This time the numbers shifted. Not everyone was convinced, but enough were moved by Kal's message. Humanity would not be exterminated. They would not be quarantined forever. Instead, they would be granted provisional membership in the Council. There would be observers on Earth. There would be restrictions on expansion. But humanity would be given a chance to prove they were more than their ancestors' legacy. When the Horizon Dawn finally prepared to leave Unity Station, Velthar met with Minho one last time. The crystal being's light was blue again, but thoughtful. Your species frightens us, Captain, Velthar admitted, not because of what you are, but because of what you represent. If the Vorketh could choose to transform themselves, if they could recognize their own evil, and spend millions of years changing it, then every species must confront their own capacity for darkness. Minho understood. You're not just afraid of us. You're afraid of what it means that we exist. Yes, Velthar said. You are proof that change is possible even for the worst of us. That is a heavy burden to carry. As the Horizon Dawn flew away from Unity Station, Minho recorded a message for Earth. He told them about first contact, about the fear and judgment, about the truth they had discovered. We are the children of the Vorketh, he said to the camera. Our ancestors were monsters who consumed civilizations. But they made a choice. They chose to transform, to become something better, even if it took 12 million years. That choice is in our DNA, passed down through countless generations. He paused, looking out at the stars. The galaxy will always remember what the Vorketh were. They will always fear what we might become, so we must prove every single day that we are worthy of our ancestors' sacrifice. We must choose to be better. Not just once, but constantly. Not because it's easy, but because 12 million years ago the Vorketh looked at themselves and said, our children deserve a chance to be different. Minho ended the recording. Around him, his crew prepared for the long journey home. They would return to Earth as ambassadors of a species that carried both a terrible legacy and an incredible gift. They were proof that even monsters could choose redemption. The real journey was just beginning. Humanity would take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the living testament to the power of transformation. The galaxy would watch them carefully, fearfully, hopefully, and every human would carry the weight of that ancient choice. They were the Vorketh's answer to the question, can a species change its fundamental nature? 12 million years of evolution said yes. Now humanity had to prove it every day. The attack began in silence. Across council space, on 1,000 worlds and 10,000 stations, nothing seemed wrong. The Vryn traded their goods. The court trained their warriors. The Milathim studied in their underwater cities. The Drexar flew through their skies. The Quen built their machines. Life continued as it had for 3 years. Then in a single moment everything changed. Nari sat in her command center on Earth, her fingers moving across holographic controls. Around her, screens showed council networks from across the galaxy. She took a deep breath and pressed the final button. "Ether is active," she said into her communicator. "All systems compromised. They're blind." Across the galaxy, defense grids went dark. Communication networks collapsed. Navigation beacons started broadcasting false information. Automated defenses shut down. Emergency systems failed. In military command centers, screens went black. Desperate technicians tried to restore systems, but nothing worked. The council races suddenly could not see, could not talk, could not defend themselves. "All strike teams, you are green." Admiral Doyen's voice echoed through every human ship. "Execute Operation Judgment." Strike Commander Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of his assault carrier, watching the Vrin trading station grow larger on his screen. Around his ship, 200 human vessels moved in perfect formation. They had traveled in silence using new stealth systems that made them invisible to sensors. "Target locked," his weapons officer reported. "Fire," Jinwoo said quietly. The station never had a chance. Missiles struck first, destroying the outer defenses. Then energy weapons carved through the metal hull. The station broke apart in minutes, scattering debris into space. "Next target," Jinwoo ordered. His fleet moved on. There were 40 more Vrin stations in this sector alone. They would hit them all. The Vrin tried to respond. They sent distress signals, but the signals went nowhere. They tried to launch defense fighters, but the launch systems would not work. They tried to flee, but their navigation systems told them nothing but lies. In 6 hours, every Vrin installation in the outer reaches was destroyed. The insect race that had taken human trade routes watched helplessly as their empire burned. Captain Yoonji Choi commanded the stealth carrier Wraith. Her target was the court military fleet in the Crimson sector. The court were warriors, proud and strong. Their ships were the most feared in the galaxy, but their ships were docked. Ether had disabled their launch systems. "Beginning attack run," Yoonji said calmly. Her carrier launched 1,000 drones, small and fast. The drones carried specialized weapons that Hieri had designed. Weapons made specifically for court biology. The drones struck the docked ships, penetrating their hulls and releasing the biological agent inside. Within minutes, court warriors were collapsing. Their own DNA turned against them, their cells destroying themselves from within. The court fleet, once the terror of their region, died without firing a single shot. On the court homeworld, Agent Seong-ho moved through the underground facility where he had worked for 2 years. He knew every corridor, every system, every guard. The court trusted him. They thought he was one of their servants. He reached the planetary shield control room. 2 guards stood outside. Seong-ho smiled at them like he had 1,000 times before. They nodded and let him pass. Inside, Seong-ho worked quickly. He uploaded a virus into the shield systems, one that Nari had created specifically for this moment. The shields protecting the court homeworld began to flicker and fail. "For New Jeju," Seong-ho whispered. He pressed the final button and walked out calmly. By the time anyone realized what he had done, he would be gone. Above the court homeworld, human ships appeared from stealth. With the shields down, they had a clear shot. "Fire," came the order. Kinetic weapons struck from orbit, not enough to destroy the planet, but enough to shatter their military factories, their command centers, their weapons facilities. The court civilization that had laughed while humans died now learned what it meant to be helpless. The Malathim were next. Their ocean worlds were beautiful, filled with underwater cities of crystal and light. They were scholars and scientists, not warriors. When the human fleet appeared above their worlds, they sent desperate messages. "Please, we can negotiate. We have knowledge to share. We are sorry. Please, mercy." The human response was silence. Then the bombardment began. Not nuclear weapons. Something worse. Hieri's creations, devices that sank into the oceans and activated. The water itself began to heat. Not enough to boil immediately, but enough. The Militum watched in horror as their seas warmed degree by degree. Their cities cracked under the thermal stress. Their people fled to deeper waters, but there was nowhere to go. The heating continued until the oceans reached boiling point. The scholar race died screaming. Their libraries of knowledge, their centuries of research, their art and culture, all lost beneath boiling seas. In the human command center, Admiral Doyen watched the reports come in. Target after target, strike after strike. 3 civilizations were being systematically destroyed, and it had only been 1 week. Sir, said his communications officer, we're receiving messages from the Drexar and Quen. They're begging for peace talks. Ignore them, Doyen said flatly. They had 3 years to apologize. They chose silence, the communications officer hesitated. Sir, they're offering complete surrender. They'll give us anything. Doyen turned to look at the young officer. Did they give our colonies a chance to surrender? Did they let our children beg for their lives? No, they killed without mercy. Now they will receive the same. Dr. Yuna was broadcasting on all frequencies. Her message played across the galaxy. On every world, in every language. You declared us forfeit. You killed our children. You erased our colonies. You thought we would die quietly. You thought we would beg for mercy. You were wrong. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but her words were ice. We are not here for conquest. We are not here for territory. We are here because you made yourselves our enemy. And humans do not forgive. We do not forget. You wanted to judge us? Now receive our judgment. The message repeated endlessly. Every alien who heard it felt cold fear. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the Remembrance watching another Quen installation explode. He thought about his wife and daughter. He tried to feel something, satisfaction, relief, justice, but there was nothing, just emptiness. Captain, next target in range, his tactical officer reported. Engage, Jinho said. His voice was mechanical, dead. The Dreadnought's weapons fired. Another facility destroyed. More Quen dead. The silicon-based beings had helped build the weapons that killed humans. Now their industrial worlds were turning to dust. Commander Minho watched intelligence reports in his office. The numbers were staggering. Thousands of installations destroyed. Millions of military personnel killed. 3 civilizations brought to their knees in a single week. Is this what we wanted? His second-in-command asked quietly. Minho looked at the younger man. It doesn't matter what we wanted. It matters what they forced us to become. And what's that? The monsters they created. The week continued. Human forces moved with terrible efficiency. Every target on the list was hit. Every military base destroyed. Every weapons facility eliminated. The Vryn court and Milithim could do nothing but watch as their power was stripped away. The Drexar and Quen, the 2 conspirators still standing, watched in growing horror. They sent more messages. They offered technology, resources, territory. They begged. Ambassador Sora received all their messages. She read each one carefully. Then she deleted them without responding. In a secret location, Thryn, the Ixan ambassador, watched broadcasts of the destruction. His people had remained neutral, as promised. But he felt sick. He had known this was coming, but seeing it was different. Ambassador, said his aide, the council races are asking us to intervene, to broker peace. Thryn was quiet for a long time. Then he sent a simple message to the council. You showed them no mercy when they begged. Now you understand what you have created. The Ixan will not help you. You made this choice. Now live with it. The message was cold comfort to the council races. The only species that might have stopped humanity had just abandoned them. At the end of the week, Admiral Doyen reviewed the results. 3 civilizations crippled, thousands of targets destroyed, and only 800 human casualties, mostly from accidents. Phase 1 complete, he reported to the Emergency Council on Earth. The Vryn, Court, and Milithim are broken, requesting permission to proceed to Phase 2. Permission granted, came the reply. Finish it, Doyen turned to his staff. Target the Drexar and Quen. Show them what happens when you betray humanity. The war was not over. 2 races still stood, but their time was running out. Humanity had shown mercy once when it warned its enemies. The warning had been ignored. There would be no second warning. The Drexar were known across the galaxy as masters of the sky. Their homeworld was covered in massive trees and floating cities. They were proud, beautiful, and had dreamed of expanding their empire across the stars. Now they watched as human ships appeared in their skies. General Keth, leader of the Drexar military, stood in his command tower watching the human fleet arrive. He had prepared for this. Every fighter was ready. Every defense system was armed. The Drexar would not fall without a fight. Launch all fighters, he commanded. Engage the enemy! Thousands of Drexar fighters took to the skies. They were fast and graceful, designed for atmospheric combat. In the air, no one could match them. But the human ships did not engage them in the air. Instead, strange objects dropped from the human vessels. They fell through the atmosphere and took positions in orbit around the planet. Within minutes, they activated. A barrier of energy surrounded the entire planet. It was like being trapped inside a giant cage. The Drexar fighters tried to break through, but their weapons did nothing. The barrier was impenetrable. "What is this?" General Keth demanded. "What are they doing?" Admiral Doyen's voice came through on all frequencies. "You are contained. Your planet is locked. You cannot escape. Now watch." On their screens, the Drexar watched as human forces began attacking every colony, every outpost, every ship they had beyond their home world. One by one, their expansion was erased. Their colonies burned. Their ships were destroyed. The Drexar could do nothing but watch. They were trapped on their own planet, forced to witness the destruction of everything they had built. Days passed. Then weeks. The psychological torture was deliberate. The Drexar had been so proud of their ability to fly, to soar through the skies. Now they were caged birds watching their empire die. General Keth sent message after message. He begged, he offered surrender. He promised anything. The humans did not respond. 2 weeks after the cage was activated, Captain Jinho's dreadnought moved into position above the Drexar homeworld. The order came through. Begin final bombardment. Jinho looked at his crew. He saw the same emptiness in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They had all lost so much. Now they were the instruments of destruction. "Fire," he said. The weapons struck the surface. Not everywhere. Just the military installations. The government buildings. The weapons factories. The Drexar military that had participated in the genocide of humanity was wiped out in a single day. When it was done, the cage was deactivated. The surviving Drexar were free to leave their planet, but they had nothing left to leave with. No military, no colonies, no empire, just their homeworld and the memory of what they had lost. The Quen were different. They were not biological beings like the others. They were silicon-based life forms, more like living machines than organic creatures. Their bodies were made of crystal and metal. They did not feel pain the way others did, but they would learn to feel fear. The Quen industrial complex was massive. They had built factories on hundreds of worlds. Their machines produced weapons, ships, and technology for the entire Council. They were the industrial heart of Council power. Dr. Hieri stood in her laboratory watching the final tests of her creation. The corrosion, she called it. Nanites so small they could not be seen, designed to target silicon-based life. "It's ready," she told Admiral Doyen. "Once deployed, it will spread through their population. It will dissolve them slowly. They'll have time to understand what's happening." "How long?" John asked. 24 hours from first contact to complete dissolution. They'll watch their own bodies turn to dust." Doyen was quiet. "That's cruel. They melted our colonies with orbital fire," Hieri said flatly. "They laughed while children burned. This is mercy compared to what they did." The Quen received no warning. Human ships appeared above their industrial worlds and released the corrosion. The nanites spread quickly, invisible and unstoppable. The first Quen to die was a factory worker. He noticed his hand starting to crumble. At first he thought it was just dust. Then he realized it was his own body, breaking apart at the molecular level. He tried to run. He tried to warn others. But the corrosion was already spreading. Within hours, every Quen on the planet was infected. They did not die quietly. They broadcast their agony across the galaxy. Every species heard their screams as they slowly dissolved into dust. The proud industrial race that had armed the Council's genocide watched themselves crumble into nothing. On other Quen worlds, the same thing happened. One by one, their populations turned to dust. Their factories fell silent. Their machines stopped working. The industrial might that had powered the Council's expansion was gone. Captain Yunji watched from her ship as a Quen moon base collapsed. The structures just fell apart as the beings inside dissolved. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt empty. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "are we the good guys?" Yunji looked at him. He was young, maybe 25. He had lost his entire family in the attacks 3 years ago. "No," she said honestly, "but we're the ones who survived. History is written by survivors. Whether we're good or bad doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that they'll never do this to anyone else again." Across the galaxy, smaller species watched in terror. The humans had destroyed 5 civilizations in less than a month. 5 races that had dominated council politics for centuries were now broken, their military power gone, their populations devastated. Messages poured into Earth from dozens of species. Some offered friendship. Some begged to be left alone. All of them were afraid. Ambassador Sora read each message carefully. She was tired. The last 3 years had aged her 10 years. But her work was not done. Send a broadcast, she told her staff, to every species in the galaxy. Her message was simple. Humanity did not want this war. We wanted peace. We followed your laws. We respected your boundaries. You destroyed us anyway. Now you know the price of genocide. We will never forgive. We will never forget. But to those who did not attack us, who did not participate in our destruction, you have nothing to fear from us. The message ended with one final statement. The council is dissolved. The old order is dead. A new order begins now. In the ruins of the council facility, human engineers placed explosives. The grand hall where humanity had been betrayed was reduced to rubble. The symbol of the old galaxy was gone. Admiral Doyen stood in his command center reviewing the final reports. 5 civilizations broken, millions dead. The balance of galactic power completely changed. Sir, said his aide, the operation is complete. All targets eliminated. Total human casualties 847. Doyen closed his eyes. 847 human lives to destroy 5 civilizations. The exchange rate was horrifying. What are your orders, sir? The aide asked. Doyen opened his eyes. Recall all fleets. Stand down offensive operations. It's over. Sir, we haven't secured their territories. We haven't established control. We don't want their territories, Doyen said tiredly. We just wanted them to stop. And they have stopped, permanently. He turned to look at the aide. Send new orders. Phase 2 begins now. Humanitarian aid to refugee populations. Medical supplies to wounded civilians. Food and resources to those who need it. The aide looked confused. Sir, we just destroyed them. Now we're going to help them? We destroyed their militaries and their ability to threaten anyone. But we're not them. We don't kill civilians unnecessarily. The guilty have been punished. Now we help the innocent survivors rebuild. Across human space, soldiers who had been preparing for more attacks received new orders. Medical teams prepared to deploy. Supply ships loaded with food and medicine prepared to launch. The galaxy watched in confusion. Humanity had shown itself capable of terrible destruction. Now it was showing mercy to the survivors. Captain Jinho sat in his quarters aboard the Remembrance. He looked at a picture of his wife and daughter. They smiled back at him from the frame. I avenged you, he said quietly to the picture. I killed everyone responsible. Does that make it better? Does that bring you back? The picture did not answer. It never would. Dr. Yuna found him there an hour later. She sat down beside him, saying nothing. They had both lost everything. They had both participated in the destruction of 5 civilizations. What was there to say? Are we monsters? Jinho finally asked. Probably, Yuna said. But we're monsters they created. Maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't. They sat in silence as the Remembrance turned toward home. The war was over. Humanity had won. But victory felt like ashes in their mouths. Somewhere in the ruins of council space, the survivors began to understand. Humanity had not conquered them. Humanity had judged them. And the judgment was final. The old galaxy was dead. A new one was about to begin. And at its center stood humanity. Not as conquerors, but as the species that had been pushed too far and pushed back harder than anyone thought possible. The age of the council was over. The age of humanity had begun. 3 months after the war ended, the galaxy waited in silence. Refugee ships fled toward the edges of known space. Smaller species hid in their home systems, afraid to draw attention. Trade routes were empty. Communication channels were quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what humanity would do next. They had proven they could destroy. Now would they conquer? Ambassador Sora stood before a massive crowd in the rebuilt assembly hall on Earth. Behind her, a guest stood waiting. Elder Thrin of the Ixen, his furred face calm but his large eyes showing emotion. The broadcast was being sent to every world in the galaxy. People of the galaxy, Sora began. 3 months ago, humanity was forced to respond to an attempt at genocide. 5 races conspired to destroy us. They killed 2.3 billion of our people. They tried to erase us from existence. She paused, letting the words sink in. We responded, "Those 5 civilizations are broken. Their military power is gone. They will never threaten anyone again. Some call us monsters for what we did. Perhaps they are right. But we want the galaxy to understand something important." Sora gestured to Thryn. "One race did not participate in our destruction. The Ixen warned us before the attack. They gave us 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes saved billions of lives on Earth and our core colonies. While 5 races laughed at our deaths, one race showed honor." Thryn stepped forward. His voice was quiet but clear. The Ixen government remained officially neutral during the conflict. We could not stop the Council's attack, but I could provide a warning. It was a small thing, perhaps meaningless, but it was the right thing to do. Sora continued. "Let it be known across the galaxy. Humanity remembers both those who wronged us and those who helped us. The 5 conspirators will live under our watch, forbidden from military expansion, their technology monitored. They exist because we allow it." She turned to look directly at the camera. "But the Ixen are different. They showed honor when it mattered. They chose right over power. They will not be forgotten." Over the following weeks, humanity's actions shocked the galaxy. Human engineers arrived in Ixen space bringing advanced technology, shipyards, medical facilities, agricultural systems, things the Council had never shared. Human and Ixen scientists began working together, sharing research freely. Joint colonies were established. Trade agreements were signed that favored the Ixen heavily. The message was clear. Humanity rewarded loyalty as strongly as it punished betrayal. Captain Jinho visited Earth for the first time since the war ended. He walked through the memorial plaza where billions of names were carved into black stone. He found his wife's name, his daughter's name. He traced them with his fingers. Dr. Yuna found him there. She had her own names to visit. "The Council races are calling it unfair," she said quietly. "They say we're elevating the Ixen above everyone else, creating a new power imbalance." "Good," Jinho said flatly. "Let them complain. They should be grateful we let them survive at all. Do you think we did the right thing, destroying so many?" Jinho was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. But I know they gave us no choice. And I know that if we hadn't responded, they would have kept killing. Sometimes there are no good choices, only necessary ones." In the ruins of Vryn space, human aid workers distributed food and medicine to refugee camps. The insect beings who had once laughed at human deaths now depended on human charity to survive. A young Vryn child approached a human doctor. The child was malnourished, injured from the bombing. "Why are you helping us?" the child asked in broken common language. "We hurt you." The doctor, a woman named Hana who had lost her son in the attacks, bandaged the child's wounds carefully. "Because you're a child," she said simply. "You didn't do anything wrong. The adults who made those choices are gone. You're innocent." The child didn't understand. Neither did many of the Vryn survivors. But slowly they began to rebuild, under human supervision but with human help. Commander Minho oversaw the monitoring systems. Every former Council race was watched carefully. Any attempt to rebuild military power was stopped immediately. Any hint of aggression was met with swift response. "Are we going to control them forever?" his aide asked. "Until we're sure they've learned," Minho said. "Might take a generation. Might take 2. But we will make sure this never happens again." Nari deactivated most of Aether's control systems, but kept monitoring protocols in place. She could still see everything the former Council races did. Their communications, their networks, their activities. Privacy was a privilege they had lost. "It feels wrong," she admitted to a colleague. "Watching them like this." "They made their choice," the colleague replied. "They tried to exterminate us. Now they live with the consequences." Admiral Doyen retired 6 months after the war ended. He was tired, haunted by the decisions he had made. He had ordered the deaths of millions. He had overseen the destruction of civilizations. History would remember him, but he didn't know if it would remember him as a hero or a monster. He moved to a quiet farm on Earth, far from cities and politics. But the nightmares followed him. He saw the Milithim oceans boiling. He saw the Drexar trapped in their cage. He saw the Quen dissolving to dust. In his dreams, his son asked him, "Was it worth it, Father?" Doyen never had a good answer. The Ixen thrived in the New Order. Their population grew. Their technology advanced. Within a year, they were the second most powerful species in the galaxy, after humanity. Elder Thryn became a hero to his people. But he remained humble. "I did what anyone should have done," he told the crowds who celebrated him. "I chose honor over politics. I chose right over power. If that makes me special, then our galaxy has fallen further than I thought." Ambassador Sora worked to establish a new galactic order, not a council of equals, but a framework where humanity ensured peace. Some called it an empire. Others called it protection. The truth was probably somewhere between. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," she explained in an interview. "We just want to make sure no one ever does to another species what was done to us. If that means we have to be the guardians, then that's what we'll be." The former council races learned to live in the new reality. The Vryn became traders again, but they traded fairly now under human oversight. The court were forbidden from having a military, but they could still train in their martial traditions as long as they never threatened others. The Milithim focused on pure research, their underwater cities slowly rebuilding. The Drexar remained on their homeworld, their dreams of empire forever dead. The Quen's surviving population was small, but they were allowed to build again under strict supervision. They all lived. They all survived, but they lived knowing that humanity was watching, always watching. 20 years passed. A new generation grew up in the changed galaxy. Human and Ixan children attended the same schools. Mixed crews served on ships together. The friendship between the two species deepened with every passing year. On Earth, a new memorial was built. It honored the billions who died in the genocide, but at its center stood a smaller monument, beautiful and carefully crafted. The inscription read, "In memory of those lost, in gratitude to those who stood, Elder Thryn of the Ixan, who chose honor." Below that, a simple list, the names of every Ixan who had helped humanity during the dark time. It was not a long list, but every name was there. 50 years after the war, Ambassador Sora was old and gray. She attended a ceremony at the new Joint Military Academy, where human and Ixan cadets graduated together. She watched them laugh and joke, saw them work as teams, saw them become friends. Captain Jinho was there too, also old now. They stood together watching the young people. "Do you think they know?" Jinho asked quietly. "What it cost to get here?" "They know the history," Sora said. "Whether they truly understand it, that's for them to discover. Hopefully they never have to." A young Ixan cadet and a young human cadet walked past, deep in conversation about their first assignment together. They were so young, so hopeful. They had grown up in a galaxy where humans and Ixan were partners, where the old council was just history. "We showed them our fangs," Sora said quietly. "We showed the galaxy what we could do when pushed, but we also showed them loyalty. We showed them that we remember both the crimes against us and the kindness shown to us." "Do you think it was worth it?" Jinho asked. "Everything we did?" Sora watched the young cadets disappear into the crowd. "I don't know if it was worth it. I know it was necessary, and I know that because of what we did, those children will grow up in a safer galaxy. Not a perfect one, but safer." She turned to look at Jinho. "We became monsters so they wouldn't have to. Maybe that's enough." In the decades that followed, the story spread across the galaxy, not as propaganda but as truth. Every species learned the lesson. Humanity would be the most loyal friend you could ask for, but betray them, hurt them, try to destroy them, and they would respond with devastating force. The 5 former council races lived with their shame. Their children learned about the genocide their ancestors had attempted. They learned about the consequences, and slowly, painfully, they began to understand. One species had been spared, not because they begged, not because they surrendered, but because they had shown honor when it mattered, because they had warned humanity when they could have stayed silent, because they had chosen right over power. Captain Jinho Kim stood in the observation deck of the Eternal Hope, watching the massive space station grow larger through the window. The Grand Assembly Station was beautiful, a massive ring of metal and light floating in the darkness of space. Ships from 6 different alien races moved around it like insects around a lamp. He had been to many meetings before, but this one felt different. Something in the air made him nervous, though he could not explain why. "Captain, we're being hailed by the station," said his communications officer. "They're giving us docking permission at Bay 17. "Thank you. Take us in slowly," Jinho replied. He straightened his uniform and checked his reflection in the dark window. He looked tired. The last few months of negotiations had been exhausting. Dr. Una Park entered the observation deck, carrying a datapad. She was the ship's lead scientist and cultural expert. "I've been reading the latest reports from the colonies," she said quietly. "The other races have been asking strange questions about our defense systems." "What kind of questions?" Jinho asked. "Technical things. Shield generators, response times, military positions." "It feels wrong," Jinho frowned. "Have you told Ambassador Sora?" "Yeah, she said to be cautious but not to worry too much. These negotiations have everyone on edge." The ship docked smoothly. Within an hour, the human delegation was walking through the station's grand hall. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered in lights that looked like stars. Representatives from the 6 council races waited in the assembly chamber. The Vryn were there, insect-like creatures with multiple arms and clicking mandibles. The court stood like giant lizards covered in scales and wearing military decorations. The Milithim floated in tanks of water, their tentacles moving gracefully. The Drexar perched on high platforms, their feathered bodies and sharp eyes watching everything. The Quen looked like walking rocks, their silicon bodies glowing faintly. And finally, the Ixen, who looked almost like humans but with fur covering their bodies and large, gentle eyes. Ambassador Sora Han led the human delegation to their seats. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been Earth's voice in the galaxy for 10 years. "Welcome, honored representatives," said the Vryn speaker, its voice translated through machines. "We gather today to discuss the matter of human expansion into the outer reaches." Sora stood. "We thank the Council for this meeting. Humanity has followed all proper procedures in claiming systems in the outer reaches. We have settled only on uninhabited worlds and have respected all boundaries." "That is the problem," said the court general, his voice like grinding stones. "You expand too fast. Too many colonies. Too many ships. You take more than your share. We take only what is unclaimed," Sora replied calmly. The debate went on for hours. Jinho watched from the delegation seats, feeling more and more uncomfortable. The Ixen ambassador, an old being named Thryn, kept glancing at the human delegation with worried eyes. Finally, the Vryn speaker stood. "We have talked enough. The council has made a decision." Jinho felt his stomach drop. This was not how council meetings worked. Decisions took weeks, not hours. Something was very wrong. The human species is hereby declared forfeit under Article 77 of the ancient laws. Your crimes against the peaceful expansion of council races cannot be tolerated. Your territories are to be divided among the council races immediately. The chamber exploded with noise. Sora was shouting, demanding to know what crimes, what evidence. The human delegation tried to protest, but armed guards suddenly appeared at every exit. "This is insane," Una shouted. "We've done nothing wrong." The court general smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You exist. That is crime enough." Thryn, the Ixen ambassador, stood up. His voice was quiet but clear. "The Ixen do not support this action. We abstain from this vote. This is wrong, and history will judge you harshly." The other council races ignored him. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. On the view screens around the chamber, images appeared. Human colonies under attack, ships burning, cities exploding from orbital bombardment. Jinho watched in horror as the colony on New Jeju appeared on screen. He recognized the settlement. His wife and daughter lived there. He watched the bright flash as missiles struck from orbit. The screen went dark. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Una grabbed his arm, tears streaming down her face. On another screen, the embassy staff from the human quarters were being led out at gunpoint. The delegation watched helplessly as they were executed one by one, broadcast to the entire galaxy. The massacre lasted 72 hours. The human delegation was locked in their quarters on the station, forced to watch as colony after colony was destroyed. 2.3 billion people died in those 3 days. Families, children, scientists, farmers, teachers, all gone. Only Earth and 3 core colonies survived. The Ixen had sent a warning through encrypted channels 30 minutes before the attack began, giving those worlds just enough time to raise their shields and scramble their defenses. When the killing finally stopped, the human delegation was released and escorted back to their ship. No words were spoken. The council races simply let them go, confident that humanity was broken. Jinho walked through the corridors of his ship like a ghost. His family was gone. His world was gone. Everything he had worked for. Everyone he had loved. simply erased. They made it back to the Sol system, joining the hundreds of refugee ships that had managed to escape. The survivors gathered on Earth in the emergency council chambers deep underground. Admiral Doyen Choi stood before them all. He was a military man, tall and broad-shouldered, with gray hair and cold eyes. He had lost his son in the attacks. He had lost his entire fleet except for the ships that had been in Seoul for maintenance. "They wanted to erase us," Doyen said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "They thought we would beg. They thought we would surrender. They thought we would die quietly." He looked around at the survivors, scientists, soldiers, politicians, civilians. All of them had lost someone. All of them had watched their world burn. "They failed," Doyen continued. "We are still here. And now they will learn what it means to face a species with nothing left to lose. They wanted judgment? We will deliver it." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then one by one people began to stand. First the military officers, then the scientists, then everyone else. Not a single voice spoke against it. Not a single person argued for mercy. Jinho stood with them, his hands clenched into fists. Somewhere in his chest, where his heart used to be, there was only ice and rage. The war had not begun with the Council's attack. That was just murder. The war would begin when humanity struck back. And when they did, the galaxy would remember why Earth's history was written in blood.